Welcome to the Parallel World Library, where we explore strange and fascinating stories in other dimensions. Now, let's relax your body and take your mind to another world. Number 13 Mink Street, by TunaV. Chapter 12, Cries from the Basement, 1. Grandfather's hand rested on Sylvan's shoulder. Sylvan's body trembled in response.
Well then, let's go home.
Yes.
Sylvan clearly and certainly knew what he had just been through. He didn't think it was a situation born of his excessive worry. It was purely a matter of life and death. Reaching out to push open the front door, Sylvan stepped forward. Suddenly, his knees gave way, and he staggered forward. Luckily, his other hand still gripped the golden retriever's leash, causing it to be pulled back too. In the end, Sylvan fell on top of the golden retriever. Yelp! The golden retriever let out a pitiful cry. Sylvan immediately pushed himself up and couldn't resist glancing back at his grandfather standing there. Grandfather was looking at him with no other expression. Sylvan once again led the thick-skinned, fat golden retriever into the house. In the living room, Aunt Mary was sitting with several middle-aged men and women, discussing business. They must be the children of that old man from the nursing home who was here to arrange the funeral. Aunt Mary called out to Sylvan once, but Sylvan didn't respond. As he climbed the stairs, he released the dog's leash. He went straight to the third floor, pushed open his room door, went in, then locked the door. He leaned his back against the door, slowly sliding down to sit on the floor.
Huff, huff, huff.
Sylvan began to pant uncontrollably. Tears, snot, and cold sweat started to flow incessantly. He clenched his fists, suppressing his voice to a shallow level, his mouth constantly spewing all kinds of profanities. At this moment, only thoughtless, instinctive swear words could help him release a little. Not long after, Minna's voice came from outside the door.
Cousin, lunch is in the kitchen. I'll heat it for you. Do you want to eat something?
Sylvan took a deep breath, wiped his tears with his palm, then wiped his nose with the back of his hand and said,
No need. I'm not hungry.
Okay.
Minna left. Sylvan tilted his head back against the door, pondering.
Mr. Hoffman saw through who I am, and Grandfather at the door just now clearly wanted to kill me. He wanted to kill me himself.
He had initially thought he didn't need to worry about the identity issue, but at this moment it had brought him clear danger. No, it had already led him to the gallows. Just then, Cousin Lunt's voice came from outside the door.
Brother, Grandfather asked you to have lunch with him.
Sylvan gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and hissed,
Damn it, damn it, damn it!
Right now he feared Grandfather the most, feared Dis. But even more damnable was that Sylvan found he didn't dare refuse. His eyes were unfocused.
Ah ha 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 ha.
Sylvan suddenly laughed. He covered his face with his hands, unable to control this burst of laughter, his shoulders shaking with it. He knew the change in his mind right now. Shifting from one extreme to another must be, once the pot is cracked, there's no fear of falling. People easily generate similar emotions after experiencing great mental shock. For example, someone usually frugal might go on a spending spree, or someone who keeps themselves pure might suddenly do something bad. After calming down, they might regret it, but that doesn't stop them from indulging in that period of letting go. After all, humans are flesh and blood existences with souls. Even machines need to stop for repair and maintenance after overloading. Sylvan slowly stood up. He looked at himself in the bedroom mirror. Sylvan didn't feel regret or shame for his previous weak display. Who can genuinely maintain calm when a normal person suddenly faces a life or death situation? But he was tired of it. It was now 3 p.m. past lunchtime. Sylvan went to the dining table and sat down. Dis looked up, glanced at Sylvan, and noticed Sylvan's expression was very natural. Moreover, his wet hair was slicked back, making him look quite spirited. In front of him was a plate of tomato sauce pasta with a piece of bread in the middle. Sylvan picked up the fork and twirled some pasta into his mouth. The sauce was sour, sweet, and, quite unpalatable. He then picked up a piece of bread and took a bite, and the overly sweet taste nearly made Sylvan vomit. Sylvan reluctantly put down his fork and sighed. Dis, slowly eating, asked,
What's wrong?
Sylvan noticed that Aunt Mary and Aunt Winnie were not on the second floor, and very frankly replied,
It's not good.
Minna, who was bringing water nearby, heard this direct dialogue and was a bit uncomfortable. Everyone in the house, including her parents, always felt a sense of awe when facing grandfather. For example, criticizing the food and showing casualness were not allowed. Dis took a bite of bread and asked,
What do you want to eat?
Sylvan shook his head and said,
I'll cook lunch myself tomorrow.
Dis wiped the corner of his mouth with a napkin, slowly saying,
All right.
But then Dis pointed at the plate of food in front of Sylvan, saying,
Don't waste it.
Yes.
Sylvan started eating. Dis picked up a glass of water and took a sip, his eyes still fixed on Sylvan. And Sylvan was clearly frowning as he ate. He had no intention of hiding his emotions, sighing as he ate.
Food deserves the most basic respect.
Dis reminded. Sylvan also received a glass of water from Minna, using it to wash down the sweet bread in his mouth, and said,
Turning fresh ingredients into an unpalatable dish is truly disrespectful.
Dis nodded thoughtfully and said,
Then I look forward to tomorrow's lunch.
Chapter 13, Cries from the Basement. 2. At this moment, Aunt Mary came up from downstairs. Sylvan noticed that her face carried various rapidly changing expressions of anger, but when she appeared before grandfather, she quickly composed herself.
Have the guests left?
Dis asked.
Yes, they chose one of the cheapest packages.
Aunt Mary said. Dis showed no particular reaction. The cheapest package meant renting the first floor of the Inmare house for the funeral, with no extra arrangements or setups needed. Just placing the open coffin there and allowing relatives and friends to come in the morning or afternoon for a quick look was enough. Even drinks and refreshments weren't to be prepared.
What's even more ridiculous is that they want to cremate Mr. Mosan, not even willing to pay for a burial plot. To save money, those siblings even claimed Mr. Mosan was a believer of the Berry religion. But when I was handling Mr. Mosan's body, I clearly saw an angel tattoo on his back.
Some religious sects' doctrines stipulate cremation after death to ultimately end the body and also symbolize a new beginning. However, the majority of sects, or rather the majority of people, still don't choose cremation. Of course, a crucial point is that cremation is much cheaper than burial. Aunt Mary was furious on the spot. Mr. Mosan's children deliberately fabricated this unreliable reason to save money. They also slashed a large portion of the profit from her initial plan. Coffins, cemeteries, priests, etc. That's where the real money is. Grandfather Dis replied calmly,
Just do as the client requests.
Yes, Father.
By the way, if Mr. Mosan's family doesn't require food, then it's perfect. Sylvan will prepare tomorrow's lunch.
Yes, Father.
Aunt Mary instinctively glanced at Sylvan.
I'm a bit tired today. I'll retire to my room first. I have a business to attend to in the morning. You should all rest early, too.
Yes, Father.
Yes, Grandfather?
Dis stood up from the dining table and went to the third floor.
Minna, take Lunt with you to help me arrange the curtains downstairs. Call Chris to come along too.
Yes, Mom.
Aunt Mary looked at Sylvan again and asked,
My chef nephew, do you need me to buy some ingredients for you in advance?
No need, Aunt. There's plenty in the kitchen. It's enough.
Then I'll look forward to tomorrow's lunch.
Aunt Mary took Minna's group downstairs. Although she had already told Paul and Ron to come and set up the funeral venue, she needed to readjust some essential items tonight. Sylvan finished eating and started clearing the dishes. At this moment, the door to Uncle and Aunt's room on the second floor was pushed open.
Sylvan.
Uncle Mason!
Sylvan looked over at the sound.
Any food left?
Uncle Mason asked.
There are still some baked buns.
Good. Give them to me. Give them to me.
Sylvan brought the plate of baked buns to the door. Uncle Mason, wearing pajamas, took the plate and immediately grabbed a bun, taking a big bite. His wolf-like demeanor clearly showed he was famished.
Uncle, you...
Uncle Mason said somewhat helplessly,
I fell while walking. My butt still hurts a lot. Don't know if I've injured the bone, but I'm fine. It won't delay the housework tomorrow.
Uncle, you're really too careless.
Hey, if everyone in a family wants to have good luck, then someone has to take on the bad luck, right? As long as you all are healthy, I'm happy.
Although Sylvan knew Uncle Mason was talking nonsense, he still smiled politely and tactfully. Uncle Mason, carrying the tray, limped back to the bedroom, not forgetting to instruct Sylvan.
Close the door.
Yes.
Sylvan closed the door. Combining this with Uncle Mason's reaction in the morning, Sylvan deduced that Uncle might have been beaten by his father. Perhaps this was normal, right? Although it seemed incomprehensible that an uncle of his age would still be beaten by his father. After all, today, Dis had nearly ended his own grandson with his own hands. Sylvan habitually reached out his right hand, making a motion to push up his glasses, but nearly poked his eye. This body had very good eyesight and didn't need glasses. Sylvan self-mockingly said,
Grandson.
Then, with added emphasis,
Eldest grandson.
Sylvan didn't go down to help. After clearing the dishes, he washed them and went to bed. He dozed off, slept fitfully, then woke up again, each sleep lasting only half an hour. This continued until late into the night, wearing away at Sylvan's sleepiness. He glanced at his cousin Lunt, who was sleeping on the spring bed opposite. Ever since he had woken up, the cousin who originally shared a room with grandfather immediately moved back to stay with him. One can imagine how much pressure sleeping in the same room as grandfather had put on the young boy. Chapter 14. Cries from the Basement. 3. Sylvan sat up in bed, turned on the small desk lamp, and following his memory, opened a drawer and took out a book. The book was titled Money, a Meaningless Object, an autobiography of a financial tycoon from Sylvan's country. Sylvan flipped through the pages, finding 100 Lu bills inside. This was Sylvan's savings. His pocket money had been quite generous. Sylvan took it all out and counted 6,000 Lu. At this stage, ordinary workers had a monthly salary of nearly 2,000 Lu, while factory workers could receive 2,500 Lu. The two house employees, Paul and Ron, were paid 3,000 Lu monthly, and today Paul even got a raise, increasing to 4,000. After all, the job of transporting the dead would naturally pay a bit higher than average. So, these 6,000 Lu were almost 3 months' salary for an ordinary worker. With a family's living expenses, an ordinary worker might need half a year of savings to accumulate this much. When he first woke up, Sylvan had learned from his memories that Sylvan had planned to leave home. He no longer had any attachment to this house. But these 6,000 Lu were neither too little nor too much. Even if he took this money and left, what could he do?
Sylvan. Oh, Sylvan. Why did you drop out of school? You should have at least left me a high school diploma.
But it seemed he didn't have much reason to complain about Sylvan. Now, he inherited this choice.
Run away from home? Continue to stay?
These two questions kept popping up in Sylvan's mind, but remembering the scene from earlier in the day, Sylvan couldn't help but doubt whether it would be that easy to leave. This wasn't as simple as a child spending money to take a train far from home. It involved a kind of mystery, a mystery that somewhat transcended his established worldview. Moreover, the mystery lay within this house. Woof! Woof! From the yard came 2 dog barks. There must have been some earlier, but Sylvan hadn't noticed. He put the money back in the book and the book back in the drawer. Sylvan stood up, pushed open the room door, and saw Pal lying on the hallway windowsill. This black cat looked at the exiled golden retriever in the yard with an extremely personified posture, as if boasting, "I'm inside while you're outside." Sylvan glanced at the lonely golden retriever in the yard. The night temperature was very low. He roughly felt the golden retriever wouldn't freeze to death, but a pet long accustomed to companionship with its owner would find loneliness the hardest to bear. Aunt Mary's group must not have paid attention to that golden retriever or were too lazy to let it stay in the house. Its location in the garden meant it could relieve itself outside in the morning, saving them the trouble of cleaning up. Sylvan went from the third floor to the first floor living room, opened the living room door, and the golden retriever immediately came thump thump, constantly rubbing its face against Sylvan's pajama pants. Bending down, patting the golden retriever's head, Sylvan intended to take it to the second floor kitchen to find some food. But just as he reached the stairs, Sylvan heard a choked sob from below. On a quiet night, this sound seemed extremely clear at this moment. Sylvan stepped back 2 paces, glanced at the slope leading down to the basement, and went down 2 exploratory steps. The sound became clearer. He could even imagine the image of an old man sitting in a corner, crying pitifully. But Sylvan immediately retreated, not venturing deeper.
Those who don't survive past 3 minutes in horror movies are always those who, out of curiosity, go down to the basement alone at times like this.
Instead of screaming, Sylvan didn't scream. He had already climbed the stairs and entered the kitchen. He poured a glass of milk, put the milk glass in a large bowl, and poured hot water around it to warm it up. Then he took 2 pieces of bread, bit into one himself, and then casually threw the other in front of the golden retriever. The golden retriever lowered its head, sniffed the bread, then disdainfully pushed it away, not eating. It seemed it had already been fed. Sylvan picked up the bread from the floor, threw it in the trash, and then took the milk to the 3rd floor. When he reached his room door, Sylvan hesitated momentarily, not pushing the door open to enter, but turning to go to his grandfather's bedroom door. He reached out his hand and knocked. Knock, 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 knock. There was no response from inside. As Sylvan was about to knock again, he found that the door to his grandfather's study next door was open, with his grandfather standing there in a black nightgown.
What's the matter?
Bringing grandfather a glass of warm milk.
Sylvan handed the warm milk to Dis. Dis reached out to take it, drinking a sip before Sylvan.
Good night, grandfather.
Good night.
Dis closed the study door. Sylvan noticed that the light in the study flickered a bit, which meant grandfather hadn't turned on the light, but was using candles. Standing for 3 minutes at the study door, Sylvan turned around, not returning to his own room, but going straight down the stairs from the 3rd floor back to the 1st floor. When he stood in front of the passage to the basement, the sound of crying came again.
Ha ha ha.
Sylvan couldn't help but laugh out loud. Then he interlaced his fingers, stretching his arms out and rising on his toes as if warming up before a physical education class.
All right, I'm coming to see you now.
This is the end of today's story. How will Sylvan face the ghost in the basement? Please like and subscribe to continue following the next developments. Thank you.